your first game is more about the 17 odd years before that. We won't say 17 years, maybe 5 to 10 years of build up trying to get there. So you realise you play football, you understand that there's this thing called AFL, and then you start to grow into the and you know that you want to do something like that. And as the years go by, you get better at football, and then you the reality starts to set in that maybe you're a chance to do it. And then when it finally happens, after so much hard work, because there's a lot of hard work goes into getting drafted in the first place, and then hard work once you get to an AFL club to prove your worth. When it happens, it's surreal. It's unbelievable. And I remember every emotion of that game, every moment leading up to it. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. So you were picked up by Melbourne on off a footy show, I believe it was, of Greatest Marks or something, wasn't it? Or
Yeah, it's a good story. I think a lot of people like to think it was based on purely just the footy show, but I'd had a decent year that year for the Tassie Mariners and played 2 years with the Mariners and kicked a lot of goals. And Melbourne already had their eye on me because I'd played some games in the reserves for them back when the AFL had reserves. And then I'd taken these couple of marks. That was the real reason why Melbourne decided to pick me up. They had interest, but had that just been based on the goals and the games that I'd played that year, it probably wouldn't have made it. But to take those marks, they've looked at that and said, oh, well, maybe he can, maybe he's got really good hands and he's got this X factor. Let's get him in. So if it wasn't for the marks, the Almost Footy Legends and the footy show, I wouldn't have made that. I wouldn't have made it to the next step, which was to actually get drafted. So I'm very thankful for that.
yeah, well, yeah, no, that's good. You do a bit with Fox Footy at the moment on the couch, is it? Or some, not on the couch.
Best on ground, yeah.
Best on ground, that's right. You're a singer, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's that like?
Oh, mate, it's awesome. You know, I've been very lucky. Like even this morning, I was just hanging out with Jimmy Bartell and Adam Cooney doing some filming for Ladbrokes. Do some work for those guys as well, and just down the road here watching Fremantle train. It still blows me away that I'm around these. I mean, those two Brownlow medalists, these guys that were tremendous footballers in my mind, and they consider me that as well. So it's awesome to be on a show on Fox Footy playing music. So the music thing happened because my dad plays keyboards, and he wanted me to learn how to play piano from an early age, so I did. He said to me one day, you know, once you can't play footy anymore, you can still entertain people by playing music. And I didn't really think too much of that. I just did as I was told and went to piano lessons, and I learnt music. When I got to Melbourne, I had a bit of spare time on my hands in between training sessions, so I decided to learn how to play guitar because it's a little bit easier to carry around than a piano. So now that I'm finished my career, I have this other thing. I'm also a musician, so I can play gigs all over Victoria, all over Australia, and then land on a footy show and play in a band. I mean, how lucky am I? It's really one. And Dad's words have rung true. Dad said, you know, you can still entertain people by playing music. Well, now I am on a footy show entertaining people playing music. So thanks, Dad. And look, I've got to say, the marking thing was all because of my dad as well. Dad recognised that I was a good mark early days, and he realised that I was also short. So just standing next to Adam Cooney and Jimmy Bartell just before, they're midfielders. They're taller than me. So to mark the ball, which I love to do, and kick goals was a challenge in younger days because I was so short. So Dad said to me, why don't you try jumping on their backs and jumping on their hips and trying to get a little bit of height off them? And so we practiced a lot of different training techniques for marking the ball, not just kicking and handballing and the basics of football, but also that one thing. And years and years and years of trying and working and training, taking hangers and throwing the ball up, and I'm jumping on his back, a couple of contraptions we made. All of those years later, I took those couple of hangers that got me drafted. So if it wasn't for working on, I wouldn't have got drafted. If it wasn't for having the music thing, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. So I have a pretty special dad.
Yeah. Well, that's, yeah, definitely Great to have that. Yeah, so I believe what 2005 in round 7 against Geelong. Yeah, you had a bit of a day out and kicked 7 that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was? Can you remember much from that game at all?
Oh yeah, yeah. Look, you know, to play down in Geelong is a challenge. It's a bit of a fortress for them down there, and the ground is in unusual shape. It's long and skinny. Teams get stuck um, trying to find space. Geelong is so skillful, always been skillful, and they play that ground. They train that ground really well. So when you were up against it, we had one there since I think like 1989 or something like that before it. So it was a long time between drinks. We had a chance probably halfway through the second quarter, and I was lucky to get on the end of a few kicks, and then as the game wore on, just one of those things, really. It sort of all just landed in my lap. Playing on Matty Scarlett, one of the greatest fullbacks of all time. Played on Max Rourke, who was a really challenging backman. I did have a day out, and the celebration after that was because we knew it would be a special win. And special wins like that, I remember. You
Yeah,
remember winning five, but I really do remember more about winning games like that. There was a game against Collingwood at the MCG. I kicked 7, and we were up against it. It's those games where you're not expected to win that you remember. 1998, we went over to West Coast with half a team. We were so decimated by injury, and they were the mighty West Coast Eagles.
mm.
You know, great players. Everyone expected us to get absolutely smashed, but we ended up winning, and I'll never forget the emotion, the feeling of that. It was unreal.
Yeah, no, I don't feel that. Yeah. Um, you were the Melbourne's best and fairest winner in '03. Take us through a bit of what that season was like, and if it lifted your game or anything, or is there anything different you did to sort of elevate yourself as a player?
Well, I think '03, I was sort of coming into my prime. So from '03 to '06, '07, they were my best years as a footballer. When you get to around about the age of 28, 29, what you really hope is that you've got a good team around you that they can carry you a little bit more, and you can chime in and use your skill and your nous. And unfortunately, I didn't have that when I got older. But those years, 2002, 1, 2, 3, I was really playing my best football, and I just felt confident. I felt confident about what I was doing. I was able to complete every pre-season, so my training load was perfect. I felt strong in my body, fit enough to run. There's games where you play over in Subiaco or Adelaide Amy Stadium, massive ground, and be able to cover the ground and run around and get lots of touches as a half forward flanker. That was probably what got me. And the MCG is a big ground as well. Kicked a lot of goals. Just a consistent year. And for me to be consistent was something that I'd never been before.
Mm.
And so I took great pride in that, to be named the best and fairest in a year where was to be named best and fairest as a forward, and
Yeah.
also the award most consistent. So that was a big moment for me personally. And it's not about personal awards when you're playing football, but certainly later on after football's finished, I've looked back and gone, well, 2003, 2005, they were great years for me personally.
Yeah, no, definitely. Um, you also played in the Australia v Ireland game in the sort of international rules sort of game. What was
Yep.
that like?
Oh, again, huge, because you never expected you're going to be doing something like that, but to be able to represent your country is next level. It's another level again. So I I've still got the Australian jumpers, and who can say that they've represented their country? Not many. So it's pride of place for me, and I still pinch myself a little bit. But the Irish, it was a challenge. The round ball, we're not used to it. It
Yeah,
doesn't fly ball that we've got. So we won that series, and we were fantastic. Because here in Australia, I would have loved to have gone over to Ireland to do it, but I've been to Ireland and lovely country. But their players, they're not professional sports people. We are. We get
yeah,
paid as they're amateurs, so that's probably gave us the advantage. But yeah, get some. I think the best thing about it was you're playing around the best players in the AFL, and
yeah,
like for me to be able to see how they train Hodgie and McLeod and Favola and guys like that, be next to them on a footy field was awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Do you still have much to do with Melbourne at all at the moment, or you sort of?
Yeah, heaps. I'm still working for Melbourne as a contractor in the marketing department. So I'm working tonight. I'm heading home to get ready to go back to the MCG for the big game. I'll be out on the
Yeah,
ground announcing. I still work in the marketing field, so I do a lot of on website stuff and fan engagement and member engagement. So there's lots of different things that I do for the club.
yeah. Jackie, I think Jackie mentioned that you still do like the on-field announcements during the game, sort of. And
Correct.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So in '05 as well, you kicked what 74, 73, my bad, sorry, goals, and second in the Coleman, was it?
Yeah, again, another thing that I sort of pinch myself and go, how did I do that? You know, again, I was playing my best footy, focal point up forward. You know, I was never the one person to kick to because I was too small. We always had Dave Eats as that guy as our full forward, but that year I think he was quite knocked up and didn't play as much as I played, so I was the guy really. So they were kicking to me, I was landing in my hands, and I attribute that to kicking straight. My kicking that year was really, you know, 63 goals is good, but or maybe 58 goals is good, but to kick an extra 10 to 15 over the course of 22 games means you kick 73, which is much, much better. You know, so not too many small forwards have kicked that amount of goals then and since then. And I still didn't make All Australian, annoys me because I felt like that was a real slap in the face. You know, second in the Coleman or whatever it was, and then guys that have made it as small forwards ever since are getting in after kicking 30 goals. So disappointed about it.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think still to this day, the All Australian selectors are a bit off with putting midfielders all over the team, up front and everywhere. But
100%.
yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah. Yeah, so the 2000 grand final or that final series in general, was that your first finals campaign?
I think we played finals in '98. That was the first year Neil Danaher came to the club, and we
Yeah.
finished dead last and ended up finishing the home away. I think maybe third. So we played finals that year, and I think might have played it all the way to I think it might have just been a semi or a prelim, not sure. So that was my face as an 18, 19-year-old of finals football, and it was awesome. We had a really good side. We had good belief. The next year we weren't able to recapture that form, but the year after that, 2000, we played off in a grand final against rampaging Essendon. Didn't expect to win that game, but we hoped, and we only hoped from that point on that we'd get back there. We didn't. We played a lot of finals, but we weren't quite able to get over. They're hard to win. Finals are hard to win. So we learnt that lesson. And all these years on, I sort of rue the fact that we didn't win a premiership. But you know, you just got to be lucky. You got to be right place, right time, good team. You know, great players played this great game of ours and never even played finals. So I'm not too disappointed.
Yeah. No, and you also took a bit of a hanger in that game as well. Going off what you said, jumping off, using the players as a springboard. What was that moment like, if you still remember it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, like I, I vaguely remember. You know, it's a long time ago now that I remember seeing Walshy with the ball outside forward 50. He spotted me, and you just know it's coming. You get that connectivity with the eyes. That's on a very loud MCG when there's crowd. Eyes is everything, and movement is everything. So he saw my movement. We connected with eyes. He put the ball up in the air because he knew that I like to jump, and a lot of the times the boys would do that for me. They had trust that I would take the mark in the air, and I'm very proud of that fact too. A lot of guys have told me, you know, all we really tried to do with you was put the ball with a bit of elevation, give you the chance to jump at it, and we felt pretty confident you were going to mark it. So that's nice to hear that. That mark was sort of I took it on my chin and my throat because it sort of surprised me and didn't quite get as much leverage as I needed, but wasn't quite good enough to inspire the boys for a victory. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, it'd definitely be good watching on after last year and this year with Melbourne's current success and form at the moment. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to have a chat to me.
Legend, mate. No worries at all. I hope it goes well.
Perfect. You're all good with this going on YouTube or something?
Yeah.
Or perfect. And
Mate, no.
one more thing is, would there be anyone you'd be able to put me in contact with for maybe another interview or just ask a few questions maybe?
Yeah, mate. I'll definitely I'll try my best. I'll ask around for you. No
All
worries.
good. Thank you kindly very much. All
Good on
right.
you, mate.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Russell. Perfect.
Good on you, pal.
Cheers.
Bye.